Welcome to Let Freedom Ring. As always, we got security here. We're keeping Soapy Pre-Op out of the studio. Him and his colleague, Dan Morris, have now even started a feud with Buffalo Wild Wings, and that's getting a little out of control as well. But we want to keep Soapy out. That's why we got security. But my guest this week is none other than my own father, Bill Bollier, making his second appearance. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, last time we had you on the show, we were not allowed to be in the studio. We were still deep into COVID, and we had you on a virtual episode. It's been over a year. How you been since your last appearance?
Still here.
Yeah.
Good. I have no complaints. Spent a lot of time with your mother over the last year, like in the house, and built my pyramid of scotch.
Okay.
Sort of my Andy Warhol kind of dedication to COVID. But other than that, things are moving along.
Awesome. Well, yeah, definitely. It's been an interesting year, no doubt about it. It just feels like it's never ending, which kind of gets us into current events because our lives have been dominated by COVID-19 since 2020. Now we have the Delta variant. Sounds like even vaccinated people are getting this virus. What's your take on the Delta variant, and will we ever see any kind of normal again?
Well, I think the Delta variant is typical of viruses. They mutate many times until you build up herd immunity. And I think the reluctance of people to be vaccinated is sort of prolonging the agony. The last pandemic we had was, back in 1919, so it's like over 100 years ago, and, lost a lot of people, but didn't have near the technology that we have today. So it amazes me that some people are so reluctant to get vaccinated. But I think until we start reaching a high percentage, we're not going to see herd immunity, and the virus will continue to mutate. It's just a matter of building up the antibodies to fight it off.
Why do you think that people are the people that don't want to get vaccinated? Because now they're starting to say, well, we're justified. People that are vaccinated are getting it. Never thought the vaccination meant you couldn't get it. Is this a social media issue, or is there just some people that they just won't do something because they just won't do it?
Well, I think there's been a lot of reluctance because of trust issues. You remember, I was born in the 1950s, and anything the government talked about, most people would believe. But over the years, there have been certain secrets released about, what the government has done, with like the Vietnam War, and so I think that there's a fear that the government is not being above board. And I think the other thing is that most of these vaccines have gone through the FDA approval process. However, it's not our first time out of the gate with the coronavirus in terms of working on the the vaccine, because they sort of an offshoot from the SARS virus, as I understand it. But I think that it's a belief system. I think there's a great divide in this country.
It is crazy that we couldn't even get on the same page when we're talking about a virus that's ripping through the world.
I understand where people are coming from. There's a whole bunch of people that think that, they're injecting me with some sort of microchip, and
yeah.
But there's a fear, I think, maybe justified, maybe not, but that somehow it hasn't been tested properly, and what might be the after effects, down the road. But I think you have to, believe the science, and I think right now the government's had a hard time convincing people that the science is valid.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And I mean, I'm not, I'm fully vaccinated. I know you are. Mm-hmm. I'm not really, this whole about down the road stuff. I'm like, I don't know, guys. Maybe we just try to get on board and get through this. But regardless of that, we also today is National Middle Child Day, which I believe me and Bobby, multiple guests of this show, fall into. Anything interesting about having middle children? I know you were an only child growing up.
I have no experience in that area. I mean, being an only child, you know, I played more with like my dog.
Yeah.
I had to invent my own games to keep myself occupied. But the middle child, yeah, I guess there's something to be said about
Well,
it.
we have an even number in our family, so it's hard to even say who it is. You
Well,
know?
there's a great divide between you and Bobby,
Yeah.
and and then a small divide between Bobby and Michael. So, I kind of always looked at them as being like twins, But
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe you're more like the middle child.
Yeah, maybe I am. I just thought it was interesting because I didn't even know that was a day. There's all these like weird days they have now. You'll see it on WMUR. They'll post.
Does it require a gift?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it's barely even acknowledgement. We're going to acknowledge it on this show, but that's probably about as far as it's going to go for the whole day. Getting into just New Hampshire, Governor Sununu, I don't know if you follow him on Facebook.
No.
He's been up in the White Mountains. He's really been promoting New Hampshire tourism, doing a good job on it. It just gets me wondering, when we were kids, you took us to the White Mountains quite a bit. Now me and Bobby have both hiked the 48 4,000 footers, spent a lot of time up there. Do you have a favorite destination for tourism in New Hampshire?
That's a good question. I used to like North Conway because it was sort of like the stopover. Like we could stay at the Red Jacket Inn or the Four Seasons Sheridan, and we'd be like right at sort of in the epicenter of like where all the amusements were for kids. So yeah, I kind of like gravitated to that. Plus there was a lot for you guys to do up there. At the time we had Six Gun City, we had Storyland, we had Santa's Village, and if you kind of parked yourself there, you had access to all those amusements for kids. Recently, just yesterday actually, Mom and I went up to Lake Sunapee to check out, that area because the wedding's going to be up
Bobby
there.
will be getting married there. Yep.
And that was quite relaxing. Just watching the boats come in. Brought a picnic lunch. But I would have to say North Conway was the most fun. Because I remember going up the White, up Mount Washington. From there, and I think you guys might have been with us. I don't know if that was the screaming that was coming from the back of the.
I do remember going up there. Now I've hiked it, so it's like Washington is unbelievable.
Yeah, I think when we got up there was like some snow up there, and it was like summertime. So I don't know.
Yeah, you never know. That's the thing, that the White Mountains, and you got to say this to hikers out there. Anybody that hikes, weather can change in the Whites at any time. You have to take it serious, because otherwise people die every year up there because they don't get it. They don't understand. It can change like that.
Yeah, hiking is not really in my blood because maybe I'm too lazy, but I know I told Bobby I would try it sometime.
Yeah.
I think the biggest mountain I ever hiked was like Pac-Monadnock.
Yeah.
And I think that was like an off-site challenge at work, like whoever can survive it can keep their job. I don't know.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been up Pac. Obviously, Mount Monadnock is the most hiked. It's the second most hiked mountain in the whole world. But there are a lot of great hiking in New Hampshire. Beautiful state. We got a lot to offer here. This is our, and I'm glad that Governor Sununu is doing that. He did the Appalachian Trail. He was actually putting some food out there for people going on the Appalachian Trail. So very cool, the governor. He's sat in the studio before. Hopefully, Governor Sununu, we can have you on this show sometime. We'd love to have you. That's an open invitation. Don't care that you're a Republican. It's all good.
Hey.
Obviously, we have all kinds of different views on this show.
Yes, we do.
How do you think Joe Biden's doing so far?
That's a difficult question for me to answer. I have real concerns about the debt. I have concerns about all the money that's being spent. For sure, I think we needed some infrastructure upgrades. But, it's funny because the states felt responsible for managing their own COVID crisis. And, I think they should be individually assessing where they need help and send proposals in to how much money they need rather than a blanket coverage of, my biggest fear is that my grandchildren and maybe even my kids, I suppose, are going to end up with a big, big tax bill. I mean, there's no such thing as government money. It's taxpayers' money, And when you go from a $22 trillion deficit going north of about, $30 trillion, I don't know, in business we look at what our return on investment can be. I don't know where the return on investment is in some of that, So, but I also think that Biden has quite a challenge in front of him. Politics, I've kind of dropped off the map with politics, even going back to before the Bush administration, because I just feel that, the average person doesn't have a lot of control. And I don't even think the President of the United States is truly in control of the country. Yeah.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, do you feel like does it feel like we have more leadership under him than we did in the previous administration, with the Twitter, the press conferences, the constant... It did feel like, and I know a lot of people feel different, that we're lacking leadership during the last administration because he was all over the place.
Well, once again, the country's split. And it's hard to get a barometer on either side, because if you talk to a supporter of the last administration, they would say one thing. If you talk to a supporter of the Biden administration, they're going to say another thing. It's like I've become sort of apolitical because I really have lost confidence in the system as a whole. At one point I was a Republican, and then I thought they were off the rails. And I've sort of moved to the independent spot. And, I run into a big problem when I try to vote during primaries, because you have to declare yourself. So I have to go back and forth. I think you should be able to vote for whoever you want, It just, it surprises me that we still live in the archaic system that we've had for
Since the
start of the country. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of work that has to be done. But I think it takes good leadership across the board.
I think the reason they do that in the primaries, though, is that people can go in there and stack the deck and try to get someone else elected that they don't want to win, to try to sabotage the other party. I think that's the logic of it. But moving on to fan questions, you got two here. First one from Stephanie Hart. And we know that you have been in a band for a long time. First question she has is, what's your favorite song to sing?
Well, I joined Spur in 1975. They were a working band. Today you would call them a Chicago tribute band, but we did like Earth, Wind and Fire, and we did all the Tower of Power, bands like that. So it's hard to when you're doing such a mix, a cross-pollination of different kinds of music, it's hard to pick out one song, but I think the one that probably sticks out more, maybe there's two. Maybe I'm Amazed. I remember singing that to your mother at one of the gigs.
I've heard that recording.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I suppose that is a favorite one, And I always liked singing Lady by Styx. So, but we've done so many different tunes, over that period of time.
She also she has another two questions. Now you're a Mason.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big part of your life right now.
Yeah.
Great organization. What made you join the Masons?
Well, Freemasonry is something that my friend Bobby Vartanian had been in for 25 years, and we went to college together, and for years, probably I think he became a Mason in 1994, and we talk about it every so often. But as you guys were growing up, as you know, we spent a lot of time on baseball fields, a lot of time in gymnasiums. So I really didn't have the extra time to devote to something like that. Then about 6 years ago, I made a decision that I wanted to be able to spend more time with my friend, and I thought it would be nice to do something worthwhile, because the pillars of Freemasonry are built around faith, hope, and charity. Faith in your Maker, whoever that may be. It's not tied to any one religion. And hope, hope to provide hope to people that have lost hope. And the charity, one of our biggest charities is the Shriners Burn Institute. And they've been growing all over the country. So I looked at that and decided that Freemasonry would help me leave a more positive footprint on the earth through charity and belief in God. Not any one particular religion. It's you don't have to be like a Catholic to be a Mason.
Yeah.
You just have to believe in a greater, something greater than yourself.
Oh, fair enough. What's your favorite part of being a Mason?
I've really enjoyed doing some of the charity work. We worked at we did a Thanksgiving dinner for about 80 or 100 residents at Sheridan. I think it's a Sheridan Assisted Living Center. Mom came, and we served dinner to the 80 people, and we prepared it, and that was a lot of fun. We went up to the Veterans Administration in Jamaica Plain and brought gifts and Christmas greetings to a lot of the vets that were, either hurt, in combat or, for whatever reason found themselves on their backs there. Tried to honor them with that. We worked with a family about a year ago in Westwood who the fire wiped out their entire house and all their belongings, and their father was killed in the fire. So we brought together all of the resources we have to try to aid them, with clothing and food and a place to stay, and that was, and it happened again this year. So our lodge is right next to the Westwood Fire Department, and across the street from the Westwood Police Department, and there's a guy that works at the police department that's a dispatcher, and his apartment burned down while he was at work, and we got wind of that and came up with some thoughts of how we could help him, and we just received a thank you card from him at our last meeting. So yeah, to sum it up, I think that Masonry, for me, Freemasonry, not to be confused with the people that lay the bricks.
Yeah.
But I think it's more of like, how can you become a better person, and fraternity, with your, as we call them, our brothers.
Awesome. Well, we got some questions from Jimmy Russo. Great friend of yours.
Yes.
Friend of the show, Jimmy Russo. Have you ever thought about doing any original music?
Yes. Well, I've written a bunch of original songs, recorded a couple of them. The band as a whole has never done a lot of any original material. So for me, that's sort of a personal thing. I wrote a song, I think it was like 2018. One of my friend's wife passed away, and they were both friends of mine from high school, and I just sat down and the words just started flowing to my fingers, because I write my songs on my iPhone now.
Yeah.
So the whole idea is I get the lyrics written, and then I try to come up with a melody, and then sit down with GarageBand and my friend Ed Grammer, who's the music director for the band, and try to come up with a song with some decent kick to it. Maybe
Right.
someday we will probably do it. I don't know. Running out of time, I think.
I have heard some of your originals. It's good stuff. Jimmy also wants to know, you kind of elaborate on this a little bit, but if you were to just say, what are the Masons all about?
Yeah, I think I've kind of covered all that, but like I said, the three key pillars, faith, hope, and charity. It's a fraternity that comes together for the betterment of, I don't know if you can say mankind anymore, but
Humankind.
Humankind. That's what we try to do. We try to just do the right thing.
And last question. Now, this is an interesting one. And because I cannot relate, Colin, our producer here, cannot relate. What's tougher, being a parent or being a grandparent?
Oh, that's easy. Being a parent. The funny thing about being a grandparent is that you can enjoy your grandchildren, and but at some point they go home, and you're not responsible for the discipline, so you can spoil them a little bit. So being a parent is a very tough job. You can't be their friend. You got to be their parent, as you guys know. But you have to be invested in your children. And, investment means that you participate in the things that they want to do. Our thing happened to be sports. You and I, as you recall, in high school, probably built several things together. I think the most challenging one was the toothpick bridge.
Yeah.
It had to hold a brick.
Yeah, or the mousetrap cart thing. That was awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we had the terrarium that we had to build for the Galapagos turtle.
What was that, for Tim?
No, that was for you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there was the radio that we had to build over the weekend.
Yeah.
Remember that one? So is being a parent more challenging? For sure.
I can imagine. Getting into sports. Now, I'm rocking some Patriots gear today. We got the first preseason game against the Washington football team. I got to go to practice the other week. That was fun to see. It does look like Mac Jones is looking pretty good. He might be looking better than Cam. Cam's also the veteran quarterback. What do you think of the Patriots this year? Who is ultimately going to be the starter? Is it going to be Cam Newton or Mac Jones? Mac Jones got number 10 today, by the way. He's no longer number 50. He got a real number today.
I know in Belichick he's gonna come out with Cam Newton, because Cam Newton has the experience. It's one thing to be able to throw the football, but it's another thing to come right out of college and become the starting quarterback, for an NFL team. I mean, they've done it before, and it's ended in, you can go all the way back to, Ryan Leaf. What's his the quarterback that got hurt that played for Washington?
Robert Griffin III.
Robert Griffin III. I mean, they really hurt his career by starting him right out of the gate. No, I think that even Brady didn't start right out of the gate, right?
Well, they didn't even know what they had with him. I mean, they were paying Bledsoe a lot of money.
They didn't
at the time.
But I think that these kids have to be given a chance to come along. Because think about it. What's he, 22, 23 years old?
He was born in 98
or
99. I'm not sure. He's 22, 23 years old.
Well, there you go. You know, it'd be good for him to learn the ropes from Cam Newton, who's, he's an all-pro quarterback. I mean, he might not have had a great year, but, I don't think he had the team around him either.
Been in the Super Bowl. He's been a league MVP. He was a Heisman Trophy winner. That's a great guy to learn under. I think I agree with you. I don't want to see Mac Jones just thrown right out to the wolves. He's got to get some time.
Belichick won't do that because he realizes that, unless Cam Newton completely falls apart or gets injured, and they still have another quarterback there.
Oh God, I know.
I know he's been back and forth with the Patriots.
You got Hoyer.
Yeah.
Did they cut what's his name? Did they get rid of? Why am I blanking on this? Belichick hates him.
I'm blanking on it too, but I was thinking more of Hoyer.
Yeah.
They might even go to Hoyer before they go to Mac.
Yeah. So why am I? The quarterback that no matter what, Belichick would not play, and I feel.
Well, they're not going to keep 4 quarterbacks.
No, someone's getting cut. And it ain't going to be Mac Jones, and it ain't going to be Cam Newton, that's for sure. 16-year-old in Omaha, Nebraska dies at football practice, 16 years old, collapsed in extreme hot weather. Any take, like, do the coaches, like, who's responsible for this in a way?
Well, it's funny. I played high school football. Didn't start or anything, but I was out there in the practice field with everybody else, and if you talk with some of my teammates, they would tell you that on August 20th, last time I remember, we were out there on 90 degrees, and they didn't even give us water back then. We might get one little cup of water. They give us salt pills, which I think they realized that probably wasn't the way to go. But ultimately, the coaches are responsible. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to use common sense. Even if you think, well, I want to make these kids tough so they can play under adverse conditions. I mean, how many times, once you get into September, you're not going to be playing a lot of football games in 90-degree temperature like you do in the dog days of summer. So I think that was a poor judgment, and I think if I were the parent of one of those kids, I'd be pretty angry.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of, remember Corey Stringer? That's like 20 years ago today. He was an NFL player that dropped dead at a practice.
Yeah.
I believe this player was heavier set kid. You really got to be careful with the heat. I mean, how dangerous it can be. I mean, today, people, I have a friend that's a landscaper. They sent them home.
Absolutely.
The heat is not something to mess with, and this is a very sad story about a kid, trying to enjoy his high school years,
I don't even think, I always thought that there should be no pads in August. Shouldn't be hitting until it gets a little bit cooler. How many games you play? Like, 9? Start like the second or third week in September. Give the teams a chance to come together. But I do think that high school athletes should be in the gym all year long.
Yeah.
I don't think you should make the mistake of thinking that, I'm not going to do anything all year long, and then football comes along and
just gonna jump
in
right
August
into
and
it.
jump right in, because that's a mistake too.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Where do you see the Red Sox finishing? They're starting to cool down a little bit.
Well, they're going to get Sale back, and they're pitching. What did I always tell you and your brother growing up about baseball and pitching versus hitting? Do you recall?
Off the top of my head, no.
What overcomes good hitting?
Good pitching.
Yes. So without a good pitching staff, you can't win. I don't care how many runs you score. If you can't shut down the other team, they'll outscore you. In a case in point the other night against Tampa Bay, 4-4 going into the 9th inning. Tampa puts like 3 more runs on the board because who's the top gun this year? Who's the closer? Matt Barnes, right?
Yeah.
Matt Barnes couldn't hold them. So he's really not a legitimate closer at this point, in my opinion. I mean, the record probably shows it, but as the season goes on, pitchers start to lose their strength. A good point, a good example of that would be Sale. He comes on real strong at the beginning of the season, and then he fades, because 162 games is a long season.
Very long.
So where do I think the Red Sox will finish? They'll probably make the wild card. I think Tampa Bay's got their number. I think Tampa Bay, there were times when the Red Sox could have gained ground and they didn't, because Tampa Bay just wouldn't lose. They won 12 out of 14 games or something at one point. And the Yankees have even gained ground. They're 6 games back now.
They've
4
turned
games,
it around.
they're right behind the Red Sox, and now Toronto's back in the hunt. The only team that's not going to make anything is Baltimore.
It seems to be a recurring thing with Baltimore over the last couple of years.
They've had poor management.
Maybe get rid of Dan Duquette. He's the GM.
He's gone.
Oh, he is gone?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. See, this is how much I've been paying attention to baseball.
I don't care much about the Orioles anyway.
The quarterback we were also forgetting was Jarrett Stidham. I was blanking on that. Belichick, no matter what last year, would not put him in. And I don't think he's going to get in now either.
Well, I think he could. I think it'd be better off to let him go, because I think he could hook on to another club that would value
give
him.
A chance.
Yeah, I liked what I saw with that kid. I'm not Belichick. God forbid, I would never question him. But I think Stidham needs to have a chance to play.
I
You know,
agree.
and look what they did with Garoppolo. You know, Garoppolo sat on the Patriots bench for what, 5 years?
Oh, I don't think it was that long. It was
Well-
maybe 2 or 3.
Seemed long.
Yeah.
You know. Uh,
He got to a Super Bowl, but his numbers weren't impressive.
well, I think Garoppolo. Sorry to say, I think he's kind of made of glass. I mean, I think he's going to be one of those quarterbacks that is, eternally hurt.
Yeah.
And that's because he makes bad decisions. You know, when he runs when he should just get rid of the ball. You know, you're playing in the NFL. You know, you've got really fast linebackers. You're not going to get outside on them.
I mean, if you look at Tom Brady to have the career he's had, only to have that one big injury in 2008, I mean, that tells you something.
And he's always been a pocket passer.
Yeah.
You know, Tom Brady, what makes him great, I know that there are some people out here that don't like him, but what makes him great is he's a student of the game. He's a smart guy. You know, you don't go through the University of Michigan being a dummy, all right? And I think one of his injuries precluded him from being the starter at Michigan, but he did play a lot, played in some key games, and he takes care of himself, and he puts in the time.
Yeah, looking back, I mean, if you saw what he did at Michigan, he should not have been the 100th and 99th pick. That is like, you know, the Patriots got lucky, but he really shouldn't have been that low.
He didn't have much of a file on him. You know, when you're not the starter in your senior year, you know, a lot of people are going to pass you over. I mean, Belichick got a bargain on him.
Yeah.
You know, but he saw something that a lot. If you watch him at his films from the Columbine, right?
No, the Combine.
The Combine, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
not the Columbine. my
Yeah,
God.
yeah.
Yeah, from the Combine.
Yeah.
You'll notice that they weren't that good, and he was definitely underweight. And
What do you think of the Field of Dreams? We got the Yankees playing the White Sox, and they've recreated the movie. They're playing in Iowa. Kevin Costner's there. Any take on that? Pretty cool idea, or?
I think it's a great idea. It's a good show. You know, I mean, baseball used to be the American sport, right? I think that you get an argument from some people about that.
I think football has taken it over.
I think football is, surpassed them. So they need to have something. The game of baseball has just gotten to be too long. You know, I cannot sit in front of the TV. When I was a kid, you know, I'm old enough to have been there for the '67 Red Sox. I can tell you, if a game went more than 2 hours, that was a long game. And even back in the day, pitchers took great pride in being able to go from end to end. Now it's like, if he makes 5 innings, he had a great outing. It's like, what? You know, so you have a starter, a setup man, and a closer. It's like, and then all the computer. I hate the idea of the shift.
Yeah.
This isn't basketball. You know, this isn't football. This is baseball. And the thing that surprises me the most is I don't see any teams, you know, actually trying to figure out a way to overcome the shift. I mean, if you think about it, these hitters should be able to hit opposite field. You know, you're being paid millions of dollars, you can't learn how to hit to the opposite field, then that would negate the shift completely, right?
I mean, they had David Ortiz. I mean, he would figure it out sometimes, but other times, not so much.
These guys get up there and they got to like pull the ball, you know, just like go with the pitch, take it to the opposite field, and sooner or later they're not going to be shifting.
No, I agree with that, and I'm happy to see that. Field of Dreams is obviously one of my favorite movies. I'm going to ask you something about baseball movies in a second. Did you watch any? You were watching the Olympics? Were you entertained?
Not really. Well, I think I watched the women's softball.
Which is gone next time.
I watched Japan and the United States. I watched the United States lose to Japan, which, you know, I mean, both teams they played their hearts out, you know, but it's good to see the kids getting that kind of attention, you know. I mean, I can remember when women's sports didn't even exist, you know, and I can imagine all of us dads who had daughters saying, you know, what the heck, you know.
That's good for my niece, your granddaughter Addie.
Yes,
someday.
it is. Yes,
she's already really into sports. She loves
she
it.
is.
Let's get into pop culture here. We did an episode on the live stream last night. We ranked all the Friday the 13th movies. You've never seen any?
I don't like horror.
Okay.
You know, I'm not a big fan of that. You know, like Friday the 13th and, what's that one with Jamie Lee Curtis?
Halloween. We
Halloween.
got that. We got Jason on the table as always. Michael Myers.
Yeah, I think I saw the first one. The
Yeah.
first Halloween movie was actually pretty good.
One of my all-time favorites.
You know, but from then on it got to be ridiculous. He keeps coming back from the dead. It's like, come on. All
They
you're
do-
trying to do is milk it for all it's worth, you know?
Yeah, well, that's the thing about the horror genre, especially in the '80s, was they were trying to milk them, and they
Yeah.
didn't care if the plot made any sense. They just wanted to get it out there.
I always liked more like the epic movies, you know, where they go on location, like in like some of the epic movies, like, you know, El Cid, oh my gosh. I'm trying to think of, you know, I'm drawing a blank because it's like been so long. You know, the old Ben-Hur,
Oh yeah.
you know, the one, the Ten Commandments, you know, epic movies, right? You know, shot on location, you know, and then of course came Star Wars, which was really changed the whole landscape of movie making. But the other stuff, I don't know. Like I remember going to see Clockwork Orange.
Oh, you want to talk about a movie that will mess with you?
Yeah, I was like probably, I think I might have been like maybe a freshman. I forget what year it came out, but I was young. And then I saw 2001: A Space Odyssey in Cinerama.
Stanley
You know,
Kubrick was
yeah.
this very demented. Well, he's very like Stephen King. He's got these crazy ideas.
Well, I mean, 2000, you know, HAL 9000 and, you know, Dave.
Yeah.
You know, he says HAL 9000, the computer takes over the... But this was like in 1969, you know, and it's perfectly possible now to do that.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, you know, I think it was starting with the Apollo mission. They had the onboard 4-bit microprocessors, you know, so yeah, computers they weren't like the computers that used to be in a room, but, you know, that's your flight system right there, you know.
I gotta say, Clockwork Orange messed with me because Andrew McDowell's character is the narrator, and he's this evil bastard, really evil. And even the ending, it's like they finally they drug him, they're gonna send him back into society and all. But that movie is just very like dark, and you're seeing it through the lenses of the evil person.
Malcolm McDowell always
Malcolm
played
McDowell, I'm sorry.
Malcolm McDowell always played
Yeah.
a character like that, but that was like the most brutal, violent film, and I didn't see that coming when we went to see it.
I couldn't listen to Singing in the Rain ever again and hear it the same way. Malcolm McDowell will go on to be in the Halloween remakes as Dr. Loomis. I'm sorry, I think I said Andrew McDowell. I was wrong on that. But
No problem.
how has music changed since your 20s? If you were to look at it today from when you were younger.
In a way, music is always evolving. And, you know, if I want to go back to my roots, it started on February 9th, 1964, at like 8 o'clock at night with the Ed Sullivan Show and the introduction of the Beatles. And I was like, I want to be them.
Yeah.
You know, it was like I saw all these screaming girls. I was in the 4th grade, you know, so it wasn't like, you know, I just thought this was great, you know. And my dad, I don't know, about 2 or 3 weeks later went out and came home with a cardboard box with a guitar, like one of those made in Japan guitars. And I remember it like it was yesterday because one of my friends' mother played the piano and taught him a couple of chords, and he taught me like an E major chord, and I thought, this is the greatest thing on earth, you know. And I think what's happened is that it hasn't changed. It's that seminal moment, you know, as a kid, you know, like if you grew up in the 80s, you know, maybe it was your Beatles was Duran Duran, you know. If you grew up in the 90s, maybe it was Pearl Jam, you know, and then hip hop came along. And, you know, I always considered hip hop to be like the poetry of urban America, you know, because it's so much different. You know, if you try to compare like hip hop to like R&B or to rock, it has its own, sort of sound and look and feel, and all forms of music are beautiful, and they're all about poetry, and they're all about creating a feeling. I mean, a lot of people will hear a song growing up as a kid, and they'll go back to it and they'll say, wow, when I hear that song, I think about mom and dad, or I think about a time in my life,
Very true.
So yeah, I think it's continuously evolving. I think that new genres pop up all the time, and I think if you're a true musician, you really have to appreciate all different forms of the art.
And I think you're right. You say the Beatles. If you grew up, I mean, I think everybody says that's the greatest band of all time. It's almost like, how does these four guys, at least three of them, I'll give Ringo Starr some credit, but how does George Harrison, Paul McCartney, and John Lennon all grow up in the same area to be that talented? Because, I mean, you can learn things, but then there's just talent.
Well,
You know,
funniest thing is that on their first album, Meet the Beatles, those were songs that were already made popular. They were covers, some of them, not like I Want to Hold Your Hand or
Yeah.
She Loves You, which I don't even think came out on Meet the Beatles. But there was one song on there from a Broadway play, that people didn't write. Oh, what is this? I forget what it was from. Maybe The Music Man. But there were bells on a hill, but I never heard. They put that on that album. So it wasn't like they were inventing anything new. It was just that they looked different. They had really good harmonies. Their musicality at the time was very basic, but then they had George Martin, and but they were in the right place at the right time, because if you think about it, the Beach Boys had fame and popularity long before the Beatles.
sure.
They launched their first album like in 1961, but
I can't say though they both had hits and they're very similar, but the Beatles continued to evolve until they finally all went their own direction. And then those three top guys, no diss to Ringo Starr, I'm sorry, but he's not the star that the other three were. They go on to do all these other amazing things. It just speaks to like lightning in a bottle and timing of these three guys being in the same place at the same time to make the best band of all time.
I'd agree with that. I would definitely agree with that, because as I said, the Beach Boys had something unique. Their sound was unique. It was timely, but for some reason or other, the Beatles just locked it in.
You said you want to get your 5 top Beatles albums?
Yeah, because I think someone had asked, what's your 5 favorite Beatles songs, which, to any Beatles fan, that's almost impossible. So I would probably start out with their biggest breakthrough album that really redefined the band was Sgt. Pepper. Because Sgt. Pepper was, there was no more of this trite boy meets girl, boy falls in love stuff, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, even the Sgt. Pepper, Fixing a Hole. I mean, these are all songs written around a subject that had nothing to do with boy falls in love with girl. It was,
and then partly that's the drugs coming into play a little bit.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think they were doing a lot of. Even Paul McCartney will come out and say, they were doing a lot of pot,
LSD.
a lot of LSD.
Yeah.
I mean, and then I think the second album that I really liked, which I didn't realize they just sort of threw together, was the White Album. There were a bunch of songs that they had pre-recorded that never made it to an album, and it's kind of ironic that it came out in this plain white album cover. But everybody thought, "Whoa, this is so ingenious! Oh, no cover at all! Oh," and the song seemed to follow some sort of scheme, where it really didn't.
Yeah.
Then after that, I always liked the Yesterday and Today album. And then the fourth one would have to be, let me think. Sometimes you just write stuff down.
Yeah.
But it was the album with Taxman on it, and
Yep.
I can't remember. Can't believe I can't remember the name of it. Losing brain cells. Revolver.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Revolver, and the other one I like because there's a tie for A Hard Day's Night and Help, because Help was the first album that I actually started singing songs with a band off of an album by the Beatles. You know, we did Hey, You Gotta Hide Your Love Away, a couple of other tunes. You know, everybody was trying to record copy the Beatles, you know, and I think we were like in the 8th grade when we did that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I was playing bass guitar at the time, so not that I wanted to be Paul McCartney, you know. But yeah, I think that would sum it up. I mean,
Awesome.
the reason I'm in music today is because of the Beatles, and all of my friends, you know, that are in music. You know, one of my friends is in the band Beetlejuice, and he plays keyboards, Steve Baker, and it's like if you talk to him, even you know, even like Brad Delp put that band together because he was such a fan of the Beatles, because they were, you know, they're the ones that inspired us all. You know, and anybody that grew up in the 60s and 70s was really touched by that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to ask my honest opinion, they're the best band of all time. It's really hard to make a strong case for anybody that's better. I want to get through these two quick because I want to get to blank versus blank. Do you have a favorite Chicago song? I know you've played a lot. We know there's one that Bobby loved. Do you have what are your favorite Chicago songs?
It'd have to be Beginnings,
Yeah.
you know, because it's funny because anytime we played out, we did like I think we did a whole album, you know, the Silver album, their second album, we did that whole suite, Suite for a Girl from Buchanan or something like that, with, you know, Make Me Smile, and, you know, and we used to do that, and it runs about, I don't know, ran about 8 minutes. And I remember playing that in the Copley Plaza, and, you know, people like just being like awestruck, because we were like one of the few bands that had brass. In the whole Surf Music Company, there was only us and a band called Horse, and maybe the Techniques, that had brass at all. So and you didn't have the synthesizers that you have today. So, you know, we could go in and command the money to play at different venues, and we played at some pretty cool venues, you know, on the fields of like, you know, the Common, Fallon Field, like we did Summer Thing, you know, maybe like as a warm-up band, you know, obviously we weren't there headlining, but yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun, but it was, you know, it was very challenging, and we were lucky to have a music director that that actually, you know, could write music. You know, Ed went to BU School of Music. He's got his bachelor's and master's degree from BU School of Music, and he used to write up all the parts for the brass section. Like, he'd give me some music and it'd be like slash signs, like, this is how many beats you have to cover. You play the scale you wish, but make sure it's in this key.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I know how much you guys love Chicago. Real quick, can you just give me your top 5 baseball movies?
Top 5 baseball movies?
Yeah.
All right, let me think. Well, it probably starts with the Lou Gehrig story
Yes.
with
Pride of the Yankees.
with Gary Cooper, and I like The League of Their Own. Obviously, Field of Dreams, Bang the Drum Slowly, which was really kind of a sad movie.
I wonder if you're going to say the one that we all watched as a family when we were kids.
The Sandlot.
Sandlot. I think that was
Yes.
probably my favorite movie as a kid. It was like our life. That's what we were
Yes.
actually doing every day.
We watched that many times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, The Sandlot would be in there.
All right, we got about 6 minutes. I want to get into blank versus blank. Going to give you 2 things. You got to pick one. Got to tell why. Now, the first one, I don't think you're that interested in it. But if there was a showdown between Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers, who you got winning?
Michael Myers.
All right, I like that answer. I take Michael too. We do know that Jason becomes like this zombie type character that can't be killed, but whatever. Better shortstop, Ozzie Smith or Derek Jeter?
Wow. Well, I mean, defensively,
Yes.
that's a tough one. I'll have to go with Derek Jeter because, he had a long career and he was very consistent, and he hit. So, I mean, if you were going to say, hey, which shortstop would you pick for your team? It would be Derek Jeter.
Yeah, you can't really go wrong with him.
No.
Deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He's going in the next couple of weeks, I think, because they had to push it back.
Mm-hmm.
Better Bucks coach, Bruce Arians or John Gruden? Both won Super Bowls.
John Gruden. I mean, I don't think Bruce Arians is a very good coach at all. I think I could have coached that team this year.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to bet that Brady probably did a lot of coaching this year. And, I would have been like, how could you lose? And they were missing, missing one of their key receivers. Was it the tight end? Once again, drawing a blank. But
That's okay.
Howard, O.J. Howard. They didn't have him. They had 4 strong receivers. Plus, they had a really good offensive line. I mean, there were no gaps in that team. So if Bruce Arians lost, I would have fired him because I could have hired somebody off the street to so yeah.
Well, he was criticizing Brady a lot during the season. Now that they've won, a lot of people forget that. And I know your answer to this: Beatles or Queen?
Those are so two divergent kind of bands, right? Both innovators. But if I'm going to sit down, the way I judge it, if I'm going to sit down and relax and play music and know the words to every song, hands down, I'm listening to the Beatles.
Fair enough. Better frontman, Freddie Mercury or Axl Rose?
Freddie Mercury.
Do you
Hands
believe he's
down.
the best front man of all time?
I believe that he's the best frontman of all time because he had so many dimensions to him. He was a performer. No one can touch his vocals. And he could dance. And he could get a crowd going. Axl Rose doesn't hold a candlestick to him.
Yeah. I mean, Axl Rose would get kind of up there and pumped up. But Mercury, if you just watch live, you can watch that Live Aid performance over and over and over and just watch Freddie the whole time with just how he just worked the crowd and
he dominates an audience. I wish I had had the chance to see him live.
Yeah, me too. Unfortunately, I think he passed away in 1992.
Yeah, 91, I think.
91.
Yeah, he was like 46.
Very sad story. Wondering what could have been.
Our last great pandemic.
Yeah.
People seem to forget that.
Well, epidemic, I think, is what AIDS was, right?
No, it was worldwide.
Yeah, but I forget I don't even know the difference between the two. But
The pandemic is a worldwide outbreak.
Yeah.
An epidemic is usually localized, but AIDS became a worldwide crisis. There was no cure to it. You got it, you died.
Yeah, and they didn't know it was in a lot of the blood donations and things like that.
Yeah.
They're just crazy time. Karate Kid 1 or Karate Kid 2?
1.
See, I love Karate Kid 2, but I think it's just the way it looks.
Another movie I would have just left it as is.
Yeah.
Just trying to capitalize on it.
But
Lost
2 is
something.
good. I enjoyed 2. I might enjoy 2 more, but I just wish Johnny Lawrence was in it.
Yeah. Well, what about Cobra Kai?
Yeah, I'm loving Cobra Kai, the TV show.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. This is sparking on the internet again because Peyton Manning's won the Hall of Fame. Big ups to Peyton Manning, deserving. Let's end the debate once and for all. Tom Brady or Peyton Manning?
Oh, come on.
I think at this point, anybody that's saying Manning
Brady is the GOAT. GOAT. No one is going to touch him for a long time because he is the best. He's the guy, think about it, in his 20 years plus now.
7 Super
Right?
Bowls. Yeah.
7 Super Bowls, 1 injury that kept him out. And I swear to God, if they had pushed him, he would have gone out there and played anyway. All right, which would have been a mistake. But you can't touch Brady. I get sick of the comparisons because, and sometimes people will say, hey, we play in a time when the quarterback's not getting his bell rung. Well, there's some truth to that. But you're still going to find the receivers.
Yeah.
You're still going to have a view of the field. His peripheral vision is, I don't know where it comes from, but in like seconds, he views the whole field. He can tell just by looking at the defense where that ball is going to go. That's a skill that most people just don't have.
At this point, anybody saying otherwise, they're just bitter, you know.
Yeah, they probably live in New York.
Last question, this is the toughest one in blank versus blank. You've had 2 dogs in your adult life that I know of. You've had Max and you had Judy. Who do you take? I'm taking Max.
Max, of course.
Judy was a schnauzer. I believe that bit me when I was like 5.
Well, Max is the ultimate Cocker Spaniel.
Yeah, I've been bit by both, I guess, because Max will bite you if you do the wrong thing with him.
Well, he'll just hit you with his teeth.
Yeah, yeah. But Dad, I really appreciate you coming on. This has been awesome. We'll have to have you again. But everybody out there, again, keep your heads up. We're in difficult times. If you're asked to wear a mask, just wear a mask. You know, stop fighting about the vaccine. But Soapy Pre-Up, I'm glad that we were able to keep you again out of the studio. You're not going to be able to blindside me again. But until next time, let freedom ring.
How come we got invited to the...